Up 2 sets to 0 against Timon
And Timon has
Koloshinsky.
opted for a 2-minute timeout.
Wow, and this is it.
This is the face of a man who can't believe what he just saw. European champion Timon Koloshinsky just took a timeout after witnessing what's already being called the single most shocking performance in speedcubing history. 17th in the world Dylan Miller is currently pulling off the impossible. Going into this moment, Timon wasn't just seen as a top 3 solver in the world. He's coming off the greatest head-to-head win of all time, where he walked away with one of the fastest Rubik's Cube solves ever, and the most momentum of any head-to-head competitor on the planet. If it wasn't already clear when they faced off just 30 minutes before this, the grand final was going to be an absolute massacre. Even Dylan himself could tell you that he didn't stand a chance.
By the time I got here, dude, I was just happy to be here. I don't expect to beat Timon. I knew I was finna get cooked.
But after 16th in the world Luke Greiser, who came into the tournament ranked above him, was eliminated in shocking fashion, Dylan had a much easier path to the grand final than anyone predicted. So understandably, he didn't have any idea what he was in for.
That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life.
And the very first solve encapsulated everything we thought we were in for going into the grand final. A 7 from Dylan, and a 6 from Timon. It really felt like we were going to be seeing 8 more solves of exactly this. But then, Timon slipped. A mistake on solve 2 that would go on to haunt him for the rest of the match. Okay, Dylan could take a solve, especially when Timon makes such a large error, but that would surely be the extent of it, right? Well, it was. At least, for a moment. But then, it begins. The first sub 5 from anyone not named Timon Koloshinsky in the entire tournament so far. Even an average solve from Timon isn't enough. In unbelievable fashion, we now go into a solve 5 that gives Dylan the opportunity to do something only ever done by one other person, to take a set from the European champion. It was then that he did exactly that.
Reset the bracket, 4.57, oh my goodness!
A 4.57 with some luck along the way has this man absolutely geeked. Because he knows the pressure is setting in, the most unexpected form of pressure, the kind that only comes from going up against someone with none of it. Even taking one set from Timon is unheard of, but the grand final is first to 3. Despite the most unlikely outcome unfolding, Dylan taking the very first set with some of the best solving of his life, it had to be a fluke. There was no chance he could keep this up, because statistically, it was impossible for him to keep this up. Out of the last 50 solves Dylan's done officially, just 3 of them were sub 5. What he just pulled off, 2 4-second solves in a row, had a 0.36% chance of happening.
He might not win a single other solve between now and the end of Grand Finals, but
little did commentator Manu Singhal know, Dylan, by some miracle, had only just started his onslaught, and it was about to reach levels the man himself could never have dreamed of. Timon solves first in set 2, dropping a time that's about average for Dylan. But Dylan is not solving at an average level right now.
he's got the hot hand right now, and sometimes when you're solving well, you just want to keep going. Maybe that's what Dylan's trying to channel. And another. Oh my goodness!
3.49. Without a skip of any kind, Dylan Miller just pulled off the fastest solve of his 10-year competitive career in the grand final against the European champion. Dylan's 3.49 is the 3rd fastest solve without a skip we have ever seen, second to only the world record holder. A solve so absurd, all the man could do was laugh. Timon cannot believe the madness that is coming to reality before his eyes. If this is the level Dylan's solving at in the grand final, there's a real chance he could actually pull off the impossible. Nobody has ever strung together 4 sub 5s in a row in a PSL match, and it stayed that way, as Dylan lost solve 2, still trying to process what just happened. Coming off of the insane high of the moment, Dylan's state of mind became a very weird one at this point in the match. You see, Dylan solved first in set 1, but in set 2, Timon was now the one solving first and setting the time for Dylan to beat. After the 3.49, Dylan completely, in his own words, zoned out and mixed up the solving order, meaning he thinks he's up 2-0 in the set. So mentally, he now has the momentum of someone who can afford to go all out and keep up the insane level of solving he's at. This combination of the mounting pressure on Timon and Dylan's belief he was solving first leads to a super smooth 5.33. In his head, he's already won the set, but there's still one more solve to go before that's actually the case. The time to beat is 6.72, and this is where his mindset works against him. Because he doesn't realize all he has to beat is a 6.7, he again goes all out and is on good pace until it all falls apart at the end. In reality, Timon just tied up the set and has to hold off Dylan one more time to stop him from taking a 2-0 lead in the match. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where something no one expected going into this grand final took place. Not the least of which was Dylan Miller.
Could be up 2-0 against Timon
And Timon
Koloshinsky.
has opted for a 2-minute timeout.
Wow, and this is
Look at
it.
Timon took a timeout. It was at this moment that everyone watching truly realized he was shook. But who wouldn't be? The run we just witnessed was both statistically impossible and expectation shattering. In a match between 17th in the world Dylan Miller and 3rd in the world Timon Koloshinsky, it's somehow impossible to predict what could happen next. Dylan goes into the timeout on top of the world, and Timon is staring down disaster. Going down 2-0 considering the situation, the potential for an unthinkable upset is not an option. And when he needed it most, coming out of the break, he pulled out a 5.02. Now, at this point, it's not out of the question for Dylan to beat this, but when you typically get a sub 5 on just 6% of solves, it's a pretty tall task to ask for one in the highest pressure situation possible. At first, he was looking flawless, but this tiny mistake at the end left him with a 533 and an unsolved cube. Dylan knows he just missed one of the biggest opportunities of his competitive career. The momentum has completely shifted, and quickly taking the lead in set 3, Timon is officially locked in. That is not a good sight for anyone to see at any time, capping it off with a 4 to sweep Dylan and go up 2-1 in the match, just one set away from putting this nightmare to rest. He cannot let this go any longer, spending the entire break in between sets just sitting, focusing. Despite Dylan's absurd efforts, the difference between keeping the run alive and losing it is the next 3 solves. With a 6.25 to beat on solve 1, Dylan is somehow on yet another insane pace, but he drops the cube, and it's still barely enough to take the first point. And after another uncharacteristic choke from Timon, Dylan finds himself somehow keeping the miracle run alive. Sending this to set 5 is becoming more of a reality every second. But not if Timon's solving like this.
Competition right here, an incredible solve
With
from
his
him.
fastest solve of the match, he's cut Dylan's chances down to just 2. But this time, he knows exactly what he needs to beat a 6.24, and with an extremely fluid solution, he comes through, leaving us with a situation absolutely no one predicted going into this match. A set 5 between 17th in the world Dylan Miller and 3rd in the world Timon Koloshinsky.
What world are we living in? Like I'm saying, Dilly, great solver, but like, what? He's really showed up here, and Timon has just looked off the pace, unfortunately.
What world are we living in? Dylan is just 3 solves away from pulling off the impossible, but can he find that zone he was in to start the match? Apparently, he's right back in it because solve 1 is unbelievable, a 5.07. All the pressure is back on Timon as he makes a mistake, starting the set down 0-1. But this might just have been the moment he had officially had enough. Timon ties it up 1-0. Dylan's turning is falling apart, and Timon's is finally coming together. He pushes it all the way to match point. Dylan needs something good to stay alive. It's a little hesitant, but still sub 6, leaving Timon with a task he's easily completed many times before. All he needs is a solve faster than 5.86 to win PSL San Diego. That's it, and what ended up happening could not have possibly been more fitting.
Oh my goodness, it's just too simple! Oh my goodness, a huge cube drop, but he's got
Timon drops the cube, but wins the solve anyway. After all of that, one of the most shocking performances we've ever seen, Timon puts it all to rest in the most chaotic way possible. Probably not as climactic as it was in my last video, and if we're being honest, that's never going to be matched again, but both of these endings were something that is truly only possible and only a reality in the unprecedented format that the Premier Speedcubing League has gifted us. Lost 2 tournaments have been absolutely mental if you want to get your hands on a brand new Dylan Miller jersey. Yes, I just said that. It is now available at Speedcube Shop, the official sponsor of the PSL. And use code STU to do that because, you know, Dylan Miller jerseys are unfortunately not available in sizes that could be worn by a 6-year-old who is faster than you. I don't know how I just did that, but I did. But yeah, besides that, that's about it. So yeah.